Well, thank you to everyone for coming along today. My name is Michael Ewins. I'm a Director of Engineering at Skyscanner. And what I want to do is share our experiences really over like the last 2-3 years on our journey enabling kind of data and AI governance at Skyscanner. I'm going to kick off, I'm sure some of you probably know who Skyscanner are, but for those that don't, I'll kick off with a short explanation. So Skyscanner are a global leader in travel. We serve more than 110 million users every month so that they can plan and book trips with confidence and ease. We operate in over 30 languages and we connect travellers to flight, hotel and car rental options across over 1,200 travel partners and serving 180 different countries. We operate at a great scale. We process over 30 billion streaming events per day. We have about 15 petabytes of data at rest, and we've got hundreds of engineers and data specialists collaborating in our data ecosystem. So Skyscanner's been around for 20 years, and across that 20 years, we've made extensive use of data. We use it to enhance the traveller experience, and we also use it to support decision making. We use machine learning to rank and recommend travel options for our travellers, and we recently launched an in-app AI search to help inspire travellers to find new interesting destinations. And that's a short video of the kind of sequence for that. So I want to go back a few years to where we started, and we had a number of different challenges. So we had many complex systems and data pipelines, and we often had data downtime, we had data delays, we had incomplete data, and all of this was causing problems to our customers. They couldn't get consistent answers, and obviously our customers were unhappy. Our systems also required an awful lot of tacit knowledge to be able to debug and troubleshoot the issues that we had. And so what we found, it was very difficult to join data from across all these disparate systems and get answers to questions quickly. And this is a bit of a picture from a diagram we put together, I think early 2021, where it took 8 different teams, one person from each team, to come together for 2 days to try and join the lineage together. So I think anyone that's experienced that kind of lineage problem, you know you need an actual solution for that. So at that time, around late 2020, we formed a data tribe to bring together our data specialists in the company. And we formed it around 3 pillars. So one is reliability. We had a lot of reliability issues around building trust in our data so that people could make decisions quickly using that data. So how did we move forward from these challenges, the chaos and all the different systems and the complex lineage? This XKCD comic, I'm not sure if you're familiar with XKCD, but this was a favourite of our CTO. And basically, it sums up the situation we were in. We kept building more and more systems, more and more pipelines in an attempt to build our way out of trouble. But actually what we needed to do was drastically simplify what we were doing. So we mapped out a high-level journey. We put together, I quite like using the staircase model to make it easier to understand. And we started with simplification as our first step. So a key decision that we made at the beginning of our simplification was to unify around our existing medallion architecture. We already had the beginnings of a medallion architecture in place. And what we were going to do was have all of our data land in bronze. We would then do all of our transformations using a single technology stack. We had lots of different technology stacks. And we then wanted our consumer teams to consume from our medallion space using already enriched and pre-joined data sets. So our next step on our journey was probably around summer of 2022. We worked with Databricks. We were an existing customer of Databricks at this time. And what we wanted to do was to do a data maturity assessment to get a benchmark as to how we were doing compared to other data specialists and other companies. We were very keen to learn from other companies and other data specialists. And so this is actually the report that they gave us at that particular point in time. They surveyed, I think there was about 20 interviews across the company, lots of different departments. And we basically came out of the data maturity assessment with an aligned plan as to what we needed to do next. And the kind of three key things that we identified was we needed to improve data discoverability, we needed to improve the trust in our data, and we needed to work around enablement in our business. What was happening is we were spending a lot of time simplifying, but in the meantime, other teams were standing up shadow data infrastructure that we were actually going to have to, that was our future cleanup work. So Skyscanner operate at scale. We've got thousands or hundreds of engineers, software engineers, data specialists, data scientists, and data analysts. But we needed a way to communicate where we were on our journey towards healthy data, what we call healthy data. And we wanted to be able to communicate with clarity about where we were and what we were trying to do and what to do next. So we decided to introduce data governance. We didn't introduce, this was a very grassroots introduction of data governance. It was like 1-2 people who were already connected to the business, and we kind of planted the seed across different parts of the company. And at that time we learned that we had about 30,000 data sets. But we'd also learned from various data incidents that not all data is equal, and we needed to focus in on the most important business use cases. And so we identified what we called our business critical use cases, and then from that followed the lineage back. If you remember that diagram, it was that kind of experience to follow the lineage back, saying here's all the data that we depend on for those business critical use cases. And we learned there were about 350, so it's a wee bit of a disconnect, like why is only 1% of our data business critical? What's the other 99% for? We'll find out more in a minute. So we then decided to introduce a kind of pyramid metaphor, if you will, for improving the maturity of our healthy data. So level 1 we defined as ownership. We had many data sets that didn't have a documented owner, and if there was an issue with that data set, who do you speak to? So that was the very first step, is to identify the owner. We actually had software engineering principle from about 2018 that said you're responsible for the data that you produce. But actually what we also wanted was teams to be responsible for the data that they consume as well, so that they were choosing to consume healthy data, not just random data that they happen to find. So step 2 is we recognized that we needed to understand who's using my data and where does my data come from. And so we needed a lineage system. You saw the earlier spaghetti diagram, and we couldn't, it's unsustainable to maintain these hand-curated lineage diagrams. And we needed that lineage so that teams could better collaborate across our ecosystem and drive more reuse of data rather than lots and lots of duplicated efforts. Level 3 was aimed at answering questions like, is my data complete? Has it arrived on time? We wanted this overview across all of our data so we would understand, is this data at a basic quality to move forward? And then we would use it, we would understand where are the gaps and where do we need to improve further. And the top level that we put in place at this time was, as mentioned earlier, we'd said that not all data is equal. And we wanted the ability to dial up the checks that we put on certain data sets. So we know that not all of our data is business critical, but the data that is business critical, we want to be able to go at a column level, a field level, and have specific checks in place. And so this is our healthy data framework. So the bottom two kind of layers, level 1, level 2, are building on Databricks Unity Catalog. We've been using Databricks now for about 5-6 years, and Unity Catalog was an aid for discoverability, access control, and it's also the kind of focal point for all of our integrations and to access our data. And then level 3 and level 4 are in collaboration with Monte Carlo. So we chose Monte Carlo early in 2023 as a vendor that kind of gave us the ability to dial up the extra checks we need, and also the machine learning capabilities that have allowed us to scale quickly and get the kind of core table checks that we needed also. So, so data governance, any kind of change, it's a social, technical change, right? It's not just about introducing the tooling. We have to actually affect the behaviours of our teams. Skyscanner has teams that are multiple locations, multiple disciplines, multiple departments, and we've got to break down the silos of these different departments to kind of collaborate through data. We needed our teams to act like it. We didn't just need ownership, we needed the teams to act like owners and own their data and collaborate as well. And we also then, the top 3 layers of the pyramid that I showed are all about collaboration through data. And so we needed teams to actually collaborate with each other. So we took the healthy data framework that we had and we turned it into a way of tracking. So we had 25% of a score for ownership, 25% for have we enabled the lineage capabilities, 25% for table level checks, and then we were saving an extra 25% for where we needed to dial up the checks. And you can see the chart that we have on screen here. We actually moved very quickly in terms of ownership. This is focused on our business critical data, so we weren't doing this for all 30,000, it was for the 350. We moved quickly, and then we slowed down, and then we went faster again. I want to explain what happened when we slowed down, and it goes back to the decision to focus on medallion. So speak about that. So when we first started introducing the healthy data framework and introducing Unity Catalog, we saw some initial benefits. We saw things like data domains, we had improved data discoverability, we saw the teams were capturing the table descriptions, the field descriptions as well, and starting to collaborate in this way. We also had automated lineage, but our progress had slowed. What we were doing was we were moving everything to write into Medallion and read from Medallion, and that took time and effort, and it was slowing us down. I personally was frustrated and needed to find a pathway out of this. So in the Databricks run their summit every, I think it's June or July each year, and in 2023 there was a company called Yipit Data that did a talk, and they had found a way to quickly get all of their data into Unity Catalog without having to rewrite everything. And that was like, okay, we need to find our way of doing that. By the way, since that time, Databricks have introduced an awful lot of capabilities that you don't need to rewrite everything, but this is where we were 12 plus months ago. So in addition to that, Databricks had introduced a feature called system tables. And this was really great because what it allowed us to do, so Unity Catalog would give us the lineage for the data inside Unity Catalog, so you know where it's coming from and who's consuming it. But the system tables would allow us to see who's reading and writing from our Hive metastore. And that allowed us to see, okay, how many tables do we have that are actually active? And it turned out there were 1,500 or thereabouts active tables and not the 30,000. So that we turned this into, about 12 months ago, we turned this into an acceleration program to get all of our data into Unity Catalog. We were going to prioritize getting the data into Unity Catalog, even if it was outside of Medallion, rather than biasing towards Medallion. So we learned as we were on this journey also, we introduced different metadata that we had missed out of our original pyramid diagram. So we had things like data classification. So data classification is a taxonomy for, like, is the data public for anyone? Is it for internal usage, confidential, or is it sensitive data? We wanted the ability to understand our different types of data. We also had data categorization that we wanted to put across. So we've got data that's for analytical use cases, and we've got data for different operational use cases, and we wanted to have that metadata that would help us kind of make decisions about the data, and then also automate guardrails about the data also. And we further evolved our data governance framework. So the pyramid was a very easy thing for people to understand, but at times it was difficult for people to know, what's the first thing I should do? What's the second thing I should do? What's the third thing? And so we kind of broke down our data governance framework to be a bit more targeted about what we're going to do. I'm going to shout out the very bottom line there, which relates to a feature that Monte Carlo had introduced, and probably at the beginning of this year, read a blog from JetBlue in Monte Carlo where it spoke about this feature called status update rate. So what this was saying was, you don't need, it's not enough to purely introduce the alerts and have the monitoring and the alerts go off. You've actually got to do something about it. And so status update rate aligned very well with us for our behavioural change. We wanted teams to own the alerts and take action on the alerts, because this is how we all share in the quality of the data that we have. So I want to finish up by telling you where we are today. So we're now at a point, we've scaled the adoption. In fact, actually just last week, we've got all of our active data into Unity Catalog. So we've completed that part of the journey. But these changes do take time, especially when you've got hundreds of people. So we've got all of our data into Unity Catalog. That's level 2, but we're still on the journey towards level 3 and level 4. But what's interesting now is we're now using this trusted data and our kind of understood ecosystem. Instead of being a sprawl and having no visibility of it, we've now got visibility over the data that's going into our operational use cases and AI type use cases also. So this is a picture of what we call our data and AI flywheel. So we're a digital native business. All of our data comes from our apps. So we've got, as I mentioned earlier, we've got 30 billion events coming out of our apps every single day. These events are being transformed, enriched with other data sets. We're turning them into machine learning models. We're then serving that data via reporting systems, but we're also sending that data back to our traveller experiences. And the Savvy Search feature that I showed earlier on, what's interesting about that is it's using our data in the app, but it's actually now also generating new types of data. We're getting the unstructured prompts, the questions that are coming in from our travellers. That's another source of data that can feed this flywheel. So I'm going to share a final couple of slides on what did we find useful. Been a big thing for us is about learning from others. There's a very healthy kind of community, I guess, and lots of sharing going on. We learned from the Databricks Data and AI Summit, the Monte Carlo JetBlue blog, and so I would strongly encourage you to do that. And this has helped us to come out with action plans that allow us to hit the ground running and make progress. We've learned also that not all data is equal, and we've used that in our favour to help us prioritise and focus our team efforts so we can have biggest bang for our buck in terms of the data improvements we make. So the Medallion Unity Catalog was an interesting part of our journey as well. We started by focusing on Medallion, but realised that was the slow path, and then we've since focused on a tool like Unity Catalog, and there are others that can give you automatic visibility. Meet the data where it is was very powerful for us. And so tools like Unity Catalog allow us to have an understanding of what's going on inside our ecosystem. And Medallion was great for getting started, but it was too slow a metaphor for us to follow. And when operating at scale, one of the things that, like, we've got hundreds of people hundreds of engineers and data specialists that we collaborate with. We want to make progress visible. We want to be able to show, yes, things are actually getting better. And not only show that things are getting better, but over time you do see that people feel that these changes are better also. So it's important, make the work visible, show the momentum, keep momentum up around these change programs, because they do take time. So my last point, so going out with asks to many different teams. Not all of our teams are data specialists, so you can't just throw a tool over the wall to them. You have to go with very targeted, please do this, here's the simplest course of action. And even better than that is if you can do a transformation where they don't need to do anything at all. That's I guess, our gold standard. So all these things have helped us to kind of go through a change journey. These changes do take time, so it's important just to kind of stay on target and understand that the change will take time. So that is our data journey. Hopefully some of that resonates. Hopefully some of it is useful to you. And I'll move on to thank yous. So I've got 3 thank yous to the Skyscanner team that built this. I can actually see a few current Skyscanner and some former Skyscanner people here. Databricks as well have been a key part, and Monte Carlo also. So thank you to them. And they've all collaborated with us to help us improve reliability, trust in our data, so that we can make smarter, faster decisions using our data. So thank you. If anyone's got a question, I can take maybe a couple of questions. I think I've got about 5 minutes left. Oh, there's a question here.
Michael, thanks very much. Towards the end, you mentioned for the let's say the non-technical teams or folks that don't work in data every day. I'm very curious about whether you've been able to effectively, from a mindset perspective, move folks from seeing governance as a chore. Have you been successful in engaging the non-data folks in the organization from seeing, from a mindset perspective, from seeing it as a chore to really realizing the business benefit of it?
So I think Skyscanner's fortunate because data has been at the heart of what we do for the last 20 years. So we have many non-technical users that use data but already and see the value in data. But one of the things that's been interesting is we've recently introduced some core data sets that we're making very important business decisions on, and we've spotted, oh, we can improve the accuracy of this data, and we're now getting pushback from people going, oh, that means I need to change things. Once you improve the accuracy, I'll lose the historical kind of, so it's not, unfortunately, it's not a one and done, and you have to kind of iterate through some of these challenges as well. But we have a lot of people who already use data, but we need to up-level their literacy around aspects of working with data as well. That helps. I think maybe one last question and then we'll call it.
Hey, thanks. Super interesting talk. So I think of Skyscanner, I'm thinking about, I guess, integration, curation, and services based on data from right across the airline industry. And I imagine that you work with a load of airlines and other aviation companies as partners, in effect. So I was wondering whether there was anything at the interface, whether this program had in any way touched on partner organizations and had effects beyond Skyscanner alone as an organization?
That's a very good question. I think a lot of our focus over the last 2-3 years has really been on our analytical data. And so I think we're now at a point where we're starting to kind of reach out further beyond. But yeah, I'm not aware of it having a direct impact beyond our four walls to begin with, but it's an interesting point. So, right, I think we've 5 minutes left, so let's call it there. Thank you for your time, and thank you.